It is digging for wisdom time. You got your boy Professor Diggs. You got the Wizord here. We got 1 week in the books. Did we learn things? Did we not learn things? Are we going to overreact? Well, we know we're going to overreact. I mean, I can already tell you the shovel's coming out already for Diggsy, and we just had 1 week. But that's what we do. We overreact to what we see in week one. My first overreaction is all the long snappers in the area need to get together and go through one more training session, because that was a little bit ridiculous. The games I was at, the balls were flying all over the place like they're shooting space shuttles up into space. Diggs, what did you learn your first week? What games did you go to? What did you see?
Well, I started out Thursday night. We went to Frisco Emerson versus McKinney. And Frisco Emerson, the defense is fine. The offense has got to work on some things. The quarterback is a senior, but he hasn't taken any snaps yet, so he's still got to figure his place out and trust the receivers. But the defense looked great, holding a very talented McKinney offense down to 7 points, just making them run for their lives. Friday night, Plano East. Put up 55 points. How did you feel about that when you saw those score updates coming out?
55
burger in the middle of the third quarter.
50 burger. I was thinking I was going to hear a lot about going to state and all this stuff from you today, and am I going to hear that or no?
Well, I mean, when your football team scores more than your state championship basketball team does, I mean, you have a lot to be optimistic about, but at the same time, got a lot of work to do. There are some things. You talked about the long snappers, and I felt you, because we gave up 7 points to a long snapper, giving Roy City the ball about the 7-yard line. So yes, I would support that. Maybe we get a little sponsorship. Maybe the Snapple. Maybe Snapple could.
There you go.
Like what I'm doing there?
I do like
Snapple
that.
can sponsor that for us and take care of it. Then a Saturday doubleheader went to Lancaster and North Crowley, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that through our games this week, because that's really going to have a outcome on what we're going to talk about when we talk about DeSoto and North Crowley and Lancaster and Aledo. But Lancaster really impressed me. I think they have a lot to be proud about. There was a very ominous call that was called an inadvertent whistle. That it was a 14-point swing. If you just take that out in isolation, Lancaster maybe should have won that game. There was a roughing the kicker, which was more of a makeup call, I think most people agreed on. But that only got you 7 points back, because they're still able to go through the drive. So it was a very competitive game. North Crowley, it's one of those things. Is North Crowley down? Is Lancaster up? We're going to need a little bit more calibration to figure that out, and that's what week 2 is going to give us the insight to. And then Melissa versus Parkview. Parkview was a very good team out of Arkansas. I called them the Duncanville of Arkansas. They could have been the Highland Park of Arkansas. They were very well coached, very big. Had some athletes. Their athletes showed up. Their OU commit had a pick 6 in that game. They had speed on the edges, but Melissa showed a lot of heart. They kept fighting. I like their new their new quarterback. They have a freshman running back named Bear Tabor. So he's maybe a 2028 bobblehead candidate, Ward. I know you're starting to figure those things out for the next 3 or 4 years. You have to figure that out for 27. When you are a freshman starting at Melissa at running back, it's because he was good. He broke one to the house that got called back from penalty, but he had the talent to absolutely be there. So I actually came up more impressed with Melissa than I thought I would be going into things. Now, where were you at, Wizzy? And I know we had the crew at a lot of places this week, opening up new stadiums. You were hanging out in air conditioning because you're smart. And we're going to talk about you being smart here in a little bit, which I'm a little disappointed in. You being smart, I don't like that. I like to be the smart one here. But Wizzy, where were you?
I didn't mean to disappoint you by being so unbelievably intelligent and perceptive, but it is what it is. I'll disappoint you later. Well, you know where I was at for 2 of them. We talked about that, the Emerson McKinney game on Thursday and Saturday. I was at North Crowley and Lancaster. Yes, that whole sequence there at the end of the second quarter was just gut wrenching. I was on the Lancaster side shooting up top, so I felt all their pain as they were going, "What's going on here?" Because the junior running back had a really good game, Isaiah, and he just had that one spot, man. He could not handle the snap and fumbled at the 5. They got a 2-minute, 95-yard drive that was aided by some nonsensical inadvertent whistles. I don't think you should even put the whistle in your mouth until you're ready to blow it. Some of these refs, I see it in there until the whole time, and then if you just hear a sound, all of a sudden you're going to blow a whistle. But it sounded like a pop. I mean, we'll talk about it later. It sounded like a pop, but no ball hits the ground making that sound. It makes that sound when you hit your foot. And it ended up being a pick 6 for Lancaster, but it was a pick not 6, and that was sad to see. But Friday I went to Saxe and Capel. I met a fan of the show. Capel's lineman number 54. His pops was there. How you doing, pops? He was a big fan of the show. It's gritty win for Capel because they couldn't really get things going while I was there, but Eddie Griffin got things going in the second half. And of course, if I'm going to a Saxe Capel game, I'm going to get some sort of highlight play by Khalid Lockett, and he did it in their only touchdown. Had a defensive back grabbing his right arm, so he couldn't even use it. He used his left arm to catch it by itself, and then darted the rest of the 60 yards for a touchdown. He just does that all the time. Only bad thing, Khalid, I need you to do it on my side of the field. It looks prettier when the ball's coming right at me. But maybe that's my fault for not seeing where you're lining up and running back and forth. But I'm 53, man. I can't be running all over the place. Then I went over to Colleyville Heritage and Red Oak, and I was excited about that one because there was already a shootout at the half. It was like 22-19. They were doing some things, but, man, to me that was a mess. The second half was a mess. Weaver got his yards most in the first half because they could not move the ball that well. And Red Oak, what's your least favorite thing in life, Diggs, besides Two quarterbacks. And I had a guy on the sideline telling me, yeah, we're just figuring it out. We're figuring it out. And, man, it must have been 3 months ago where Taz Williams and the other receiver were just so excited about the Arkansas guy. But he came in and I think he only threw like 8 passes that game. And the other guy was in there. And neither one of them were finding him in the second half at all. And that was a bad deep snapper game. 2 of them went right into the red zone, which Colleyville Heritage fell on it. They got a short 1-yard run and then the game-winning field goal. You would think it looked a little bit like Red Oak was in control, but they couldn't turn anything into points. Defensively, they played great. Colleyville, they played great when they got the ball into Braden Blewett's hands, but he got hurt for most of the fourth quarter. He did come back in late. I think he had some sort of leg injury of some sort, but he'll be fine for this Richland game that you're going to talk about later on. But those are the games I was at, and, of course, I was following all your tweets about the Melissa game because I was very interested to see. It looked like they kind of just – what do they go out on downs or fumble down the stretch when they're going in for the tying score?
They just out on downs. At the end of the day, they just got pushed back, and there was a little jet sweep and they got fumbled, and that was it. They recovered it and sat it out. So, but again, it's one of those games where I came away very impressed with Melissa, and I know we got to go down the country roads, Wizzy.
That's right.
And part of the other show this week.
Yeah, we went out to Godley, man. Jerome was out there. If you saw the highlights, he brought the drone out to see that sweet new stadium they have out there in Godley. They took on Alvarado. Man, the shots that he got with that thing, it just looked amazing, man. It looks like a place that I'd want to visit. I mean, these stadiums just keep getting bigger and better, and it doesn't matter what classification you are. If you got the money to build a stadium, you build the best thing you could possibly do.
It's funny, Warren. I'm about to go political on us. We should put like a political thing down here. And I know people don't like politics and sports. This is non-political political. It's pro sports, pro football kind of a politics. But if you go back, and I know there was an article, either a couple of years ago, they like to rehash it about all the stadiums in Collin County, and how much they cost and all of that. But now when you look at it, Katy is trying to build a $90 million stadium or something down there in Houston. That Allen's $60 million stadium is starting to look real good in comparison. And one thing I've learned, and I think people will tell you all the time, is kind of this common sense thing. If you got a bond package on the ballot, and I know people have varying opinions about it, and vote for it, because it ain't ever going to get cheaper, because it's going to be needed at some point, and it's never going to get cheaper. That's not, it's never going to get cheaper. And get it in now and get these beautiful, facilities in there. And I promise you, it's going to save you money in the long run, because, now you got, people, if you try to build a new stadium, like if you're in Plano, for instance, and you're like, okay, we're gonna get Plano West a stadium. They deserve a stadium. They don't deserve a stadium. But if they did deserve a stadium, it just for like a basic, cookie cutter thing, you're probably looking at $40-50 million. And Tom Kimbrough back in early 2000 was only $15 million. So build it while you can, folks. That is my PSA today. Vote for those bond packages because assuming they're logical and smart, they're going to save you money down the road. It's an investment, Ward, and I love to see investments in our community. And that Godley Stadium looked fantastic. I know Godley's probably about 10 years away from really peak growth, but the stadium looks beautiful, and they're building into it. And that's kind of the things you need to do because, Salina is about to be a 6A school in about 6 years. They're probably going to have more high schools. Prosper's trying to think about their second stadium, but they spent so much on their first stadium. It's like, well, do we want to build a second stadium? How are we going to work that out? But these stadiums are absolutely beautiful. Crowley is kind of what I consider that. It was a smaller stadium, but it is absolutely beautiful. And now it's LED technology. You're not a fan of the LED lights,
are you? No, I like LED. I like LED. It's fine. It kind of freaks me out sometimes when I'm shooting. All sorts of lights are going on, but I like it. It's not bad at all.
Roy City was doing light shows and stuff. I know Lovejoy does that, and those are fun too. So
right.
Support your local stadiums and dig for wisdom. Godly, good on you. We like you, Godly.
It's like quarterbacks, but you might as well pay them now because somebody's going to pay them. The salaries are going to keep going up and up. I'm not going to say nothing about no Cowboys. You don't need to pay that guy. You just let that thing go. All right, let's talk. Somebody will. Yeah, whether it's your boys or not, we'll see. Dick's got a whole basket over there full of flowers, and he's willing to give them out. And I have a feeling I might be getting some, so let me sit back here and accept my flowers. Go ahead, Dick. Start up.
I have to give flowers where they are due. As you know, Ward, I am your reigning and defending media pick'em champion for 3 straight years. 3 straight years.
I have heard that.
And defending media pick'em champion. And all of a sudden this year, I find out that you decide you're going to join. I guess you were extended an invitation, and you're like, I'd like to do this. I think I can pick 10 games a week. You're getting the wisdom from the digging side of things, and you think you can do what I do, and I'm gonna go win an Emmy and produce a podcast or something on you, show you what's up when it comes to that stuff. I'm going to get 2 Emmys to pass your 1 Emmy up. And all of a sudden, I'm looking this week, and Wizzy, his very first week in Pick'em, went 10-0.
10-0.
In the media 10-0. And generally speaking, nobody except for me gets 10-0 week. It's a very rare thing to get a 10-0 week in Pick'em. Your very first week, Ward, you go 10-0.
It's nice to see you real humble over there. This is what I like about Diggs. The cockiest guy I know when it comes to picks. I like it. So you'll be just chasing me the whole year, right? You'll be in second place, and you'll just keep chasing me, and hope to get it past me at some point. I appreciate it. I put that under the blind squirrel finds nut category, and that's why I'm sitting there in first place. We got I don't know how many people chasing me, but all right. Enough about that. Let's talk about some. Let's talk about some teams.
If you're going to let me be cocky while you're saying I need to be cocky a little bit, if you go back and listen to the warm-up this week, my warm-up segment, my very first ever segment on the warm-up that was actual picks, I got all of them right. It was like I was reading a crystal ball into the future, telling you what was going to happen. I was giving you score ranges and everything, and everything came to roost on that. That's not always going to happen. So I promise.
Well, it's always going to happen with Emerson. I don't know what you know about them, but you got their wins, losses, and score differential down pat every single week. I don't know how you do it.
Every single time it seems like. I think they're watching it because they were driving down there. They're on the 1 yard line. I was like, oh, they're about to win by 14, and then all of a sudden, we got a fumble snap and some turnovers, and we're kicking the field goal. I'm like, okay, there's my 10 point margin, and then McKinney was trying to ruin it at the end. Bless their heart, but they couldn't make it happen. So flowers to Emerson as well, but let's stick in your neck of the woods, Louisville ISD. Louisville got some flowers. The way they beating Mansfield Summit, that's to be expected. But we talked about style points last week, Ward. They got some style points and a half. Everybody's telling me that the sophomores just were sensational, and that maybe Louisville might be loaded for the next 2 or 3 years. So I'm going to go see this week, Ward. I'm going to see what the flowers are all about. I'm going to go see Byron Nelson in Louisville. But Louisville, we've been hard on you on this podcast, but for this week,
you get flowers, man. And I feel like they've listened to this stuff too. I mean, maybe not just us, but other people saying, "Boy, you're kind of a disappointment last year. Everybody's graduating." Yeah, well, we'll show them. They put up a beating, and somebody stumbled out of the gate last year too. I think they stumbled their way into the. I don't even know. I can't even remember now if they made the postseason, right? They stumbled into the postseason, but they were getting beat by Mansfield, where they gave up points. They get beat by teams left and right that we didn't think they should, but they didn't get beat like this. They took a beating up there. Granted, it's a home game for Louisville, but they took a beating. You also want to throw some flowers at Lake Highlands too, don't you?
Yeah, Lake Highlands impressed me. It took a 80-yard bomb late in the fourth quarter for Forney to end up winning that game. They held Javian Osborne to like 10 carries and 13 yards, and Lake Highlands got 300 yards rushing with two players that we had never heard of before. All of a sudden, we went from Lake Highlands, are they going to make the playoffs? I got them number one in 7-6-8. Just you talk about overreactions. 1 week,
Here
I'll
we
do
go.
it. You perform, I will listen. And Lake Island's performed, I will listen. They get some flowers. I thought I looked, they graduated everybody, Ward. I mean, I was looking at the stat sheet. I'd heard of none of these kids who were getting
Nope.
150, 200 yards. And they did it. I mean, that is culture. That is a program. Credit to those coaches. Credit to that program for just rolling on. They graduate and continue on. You get some flowers from me, Ward.
You get a flower
What
or
about
two.
Lancaster? I mean, Lancaster was a team that I was high on, but you got to see it. You still got to see it at the end of the day. But man, Lancaster played their hearts out. And after we talked about that pick six earlier, that should have been a pick six. What happened if you were not watching the game? It was on the NFL Network. I know you love when the NFL Network features everything Cowboys.
Right.
It would seem like. But basically, Jimerson was just trying to throw the ball away. It hit the receiver on the back of his foot, and it popped up and right into a Lancaster player's hands, and he was gone. It was pick six, but they blew the whistle right there and then, and they called it an inadvertent whistle. So they could have done several things with that. They could have just said, okay, interception counts, but we're going to we blew it dead here. But no, they ended up saying none of it counts. We're going to redo the play basically. And then North Crowley was able to score a touchdown off of that. Went to halftime 22-7. But to me, Lancaster could have been demoralized from that.
Yeah.
They came out in the half. They won the second half, 15-7 and on the scoreboard. But man, 14-7 on the scoreboard. Lancaster kept fighting. Carter Jones looked great. They went away from the two quarterback thing. We saw Jaquavius Pipkin. He was at receiver. He did great at a wide receiver. Everybody on the field right now. The defense was better than I expected. The offensive line, which people thought were going to be maligned, was definitely doable. I mean, it wasn't Prosper or Austin Westlake or Highland Park's offensive line or Duncanville or just, it wasn't a top tier offensive line, but they did good, so I was worried about that. Lancaster, I think you're going to be fine this year. I've still got you number 4. Got some flowers for you.
Well, first of all, I think Emmanuel Choice can get open on just about anybody. So they didn't go to him a lot, 3 or 4 times, but he made big plays every time. And you're right about the offense and defensive line. They weren't scared at all. We were worried about them. The yards Cornelius Warren and Bray got were they kicked it out the outside. Matter of fact, Cornelius would run 4 yards deep just so they can work up his speed and blow through for 10 or 11 yards. And then I was impressed with Isaiah Gray. We talked about that. No kind of fear. He fumbled, at the 5, but he went to the bench and he was letting everybody know, this is me. It's my bad. I'm going to make up for it. And he thought he had like a 121-yard game. I was very impressed with him. So, yeah, I would throw him flowers too, but nobody cares about my flowers. They care about yours. And you're giving some more out in Louisville ISD, aren't you?
Hebron, and I know this disappointed you a little bit because you picked Charlie Peters. You thought he was going to have a big game, but Hebron just absolutely shut Jesuit down, limited the offensive game. They had one 87-yard bomb, but other than that, like 13 yards of offense on the passing. Patrick Creighton Jr., another Cowboy family member. You're just gonna have to be dealing with this because you see Des Bryant Jr. You're about to have to be filming now. We got Patrick Creighton Jr. The 90s and early 2000 Cowboys. They're staying here in DFW, Ward. They're building kids that are bigger and better than ever. You got the Wittens over there in Argyle Christian.
Right. Marcus Spears has got a top-notch volleyball player, Plano Preston, with it. We're probably gonna run over and do a story on at some point. You're right. Wish some Redskin guys would move in here. Sorry, Commanders. I didn't mean to offend anybody out there. Keep going, Diggs. Talk about Hebron.
But so Hebron, they showed me they're going to be able to compete in a very loaded 5-6A now. So I'm going to give them some flowers as well. Flower Mound could get some flowers, but we'll talk about more of what we're going to do with them here in a little bit. Frisco Reedy, man, I was a little bit wrong on Frisco Reedy. I thought they were going to win this game, but this was the game I wanted to see some style points on. They put up 61 style points, Ward. The defense was fantastic, and now they're going to play Frisco Emerson this week. That's a game I don't know. I'm going to probably be picking it. I'm going to be deciding what I'm going to do while I'm talking about it because Frisco Reedy looks more like they did 2 years ago as opposed to last year. And you know what Frisco Reedy did against Lone Star and some of those crazy endings that they had. And I know you had your camera right there for many of them. So I think Frisco Reedy may look better than they were. So they're going to get some flowers from me. What about the Azle Hornets? I mean, come on. And in that district, we had written them off, like put them 8th in that district, and then they go to Abilene and beat Abilene Cooper.
Yeah, we barely even talked about them. We barely even treated them like they existed. We barely talked about them as if they even existed or not, but they exist, and they're letting us know about it. Hornets.
Man. And I picked an upset pick last week. I said, okay, Walnut Grove over Newman Smith was going to be my upset pick. But I didn't know they were going to win that game by 5 touchdowns. They got some style points. They had a freshman quarterback go in there and just light it up. Their offense looks great. We talked about how I was trusting in the Prosper ISD infrastructure because Rock Hill kind of did the same thing. We know Prosper is good, and they did not let me down. Prosper Walnut Grove is in that really tough district, but now I'd say that district is 5 strong with Anna Emerson, Melissa, and Lovejoy. I mean, there are worlds where if Lovejoy doesn't click or Anna doesn't click or an injury or two goes where one of those 4 teams may not make the playoffs if Walnut Grove continues to get better. So Walnut Grove gets some flowers, and Arlington Seguin, they have been my tough luck team in the district of depth where I'm like, well, you know, they're a good team, but they're in that district. And just like last year, they were a really good team in a really good district, and they were just on the outside looking in. They beat some playoff teams. This tiebreakers didn't work their way. Well, they showed North Mesquite 57-0. Offense, defense, all the big players came out. Arlington Seguin, I still don't have you in the playoffs, but you got a bouquet of flowers to cry on. My belief in you making the playoffs.
I always feel bad for Seguin after talking with Joe Gordon because they literally have one feeder school to pick from, where all the other Arlingtons have at least 3. So they have lack of depth on the team. Then they're in the district of depth where they have these teams marching in with 2 deeps on everyone, where they have guys playing both ways, but they do have athletes and they have a positive attitude, much like Sam Houston, who I will give flowers to for actually Creekview as well. They both broke through 20-plus game losing streaks. I talked Sam Houston specifically because we did a story on them this past week and how they're just plugging away and building up participation and everything. And to get that first win, man, they're feeling, and they had a record crowd of over 1,100. They haven't had that many people at their stadium at all. They actually sent me a picture of their home side, but you could only see like 4 or 5 empty seats. It's actually very, very impressive. So everybody's bought in there at Sam Houston. So I'm going to toss them some flowers. We don't have a special funny little graphic for me, but we do for Dixie. And the next graphic we have for Dixie is the head scratchers. Which of these teams got you confused on how they played?
There are a few where I just have to go, what's going on here? North Crowley was one of them, and I'm going to give some flowers and then some head scratching moments here because their offensive coordinator, I think Eli Reinhardt, if my memory serves me right, he is one of those complete analytics guys. So that means he doesn't like to punt. He likes to go for it on 4th down in a lot of places. He likes to go for 2 points, and I like that philosophy. And watching it play out, it was fun because Lancaster stopped 90% of teams who kind of do the traditional model of we're going to punt, we're going to kick field goals and things like that. Lancaster stopped them so many times. I think 2 of their 4 touchdowns were on 4th down and like 4th and long. Like you'd be thinking to yourselves, most teams would be kicking a field goal. They go for it and they either draw a flag or do something. I guess North Crowley has the confidence that they can get 4 plays. If we can't get 10 yards in 4 plays, We don't deserve the points. We deserve the consequences. And they took that to the next level with Lancaster. And I think that was a lot of their win was Coach Reinhardt and his ability to extend the game and make some very creative and unconventional play calls. But it worked out more times than it didn't. It didn't work out all the time, but it worked out more times than they did. And I think that's kind of what the analytics say is that if you go for 2, you're going to get it more than 50% of the time. And if you add that up, 2 is more than 1, and half of 2, a little bit more than half, is more than 1. So keep going for 2 where you can. But that being said, I was expecting North Crowley to be up there with Duncanville and DeSoto, a North Shore, a top 5 team in the state who's going to come out and dominate. That's just kind of what you expected, whether it's a good team or not. Last year, Duncanville and DeSoto's playing Cedar Hill and Waxahachie, and they're beating them all up. That's just what they do. North Shore, they beat South Oak Cliff 38-0. That's what you do when you're an elite team. So one of 2 things is true. North Crowley is not an elite team, or Lancaster is an elite team. And I'm not sure which one it is yet, but North Crowley, a little bit of a head scratcher. And it's a good test because, the last seasons we've been chiding them because they started out with Sam Houston helping to contribute to that long losing streak. Now Sam Houston's scheduled properly, North Crowley's scheduled properly. But for me, that performance was a little bit of a head scratcher. Denton Guyer and Aledo played each other, and both of them get my head scratchers because I still don't know what to make of either of these. I have talked on this show, Ward. It's become like a broken record. I'm the broken one now because I keep saying the same things about Aledo over and over and over. Turnovers, special teams, everything I've talked about is why they lost Denton Guyer.
Right.
I thought on one hand, Denton Guyer was not the better team. Aledo played better, but they got a pick. There wasn't a pick six. There was a kickoff return for a touchdown. Aledo had a missed field goal. They had a safety in the game. This is 2 straight games where Aledo had a safety. State championship, if you remember, Ward. They got down to Liberty Hill with the safety. And a missed field goal and the safety, those are turnovers at the end of the day. When you are driving and you have a safety, you have given them the ball in good field position when you had the ball. That's a turnover. They also had an interception, which again, the fumble turnover, you look at the fumble interceptions, you're only going to see 1. But the safety, the kickoff return with no time left at the end of the first half, if they would have tackled him at the 1, sorry, you get nothing on, go to halftime and talk about it. But to take the opening kickoff or the closing kickoff for a touchdown, you can't do that, Ward.
No,
you got to squib that out of bounds or something. That's like John Tyler playing a East stuff at that point. You cannot let a touchdown on the last play with no zeros on the clock in the first half. And Aledo kept doing that. So, but then I look at Denton Guyer, it's like Kevin Sperry is supposed to be the next big thing. He was like 9 for 22 with 150 yards.
My shooter walked away unimpressed.
So both of you.
My shooter walked away unimpressed. And if he didn't, scratching the heads. And if you are going to do squib kicks like that, don't do it to the fastest guy on the team, or at least don't let Corbin Glasgow get that thing because he will house it on you real quick. Like he'll Peyton Bowen you in a heartbeat. That was a head scratcher. And then
he's gone, clip where you said it before the kickoff. Can't do that. Like Denton Guyer, it's like you know that about Denton Guyer. Like, what is wrong with Aledo that they keep making these mistakes?
Yeah. And it takes away all the good stuff it takes away the good stuff. It takes away the good stuff that Caden Finley did. He had a great game. I thought he made plays when he had to make plays, but I didn't hear Ray Guillory's name mentioned that much. I don't know what he did in that game, but he did well. Okay, it didn't seem like he got in the zone that much, but. Man, talk to me about Trinity. They were at realignment day just searching for games. And it's like, all right, we'll take Strake Jesuit, but y'all have to come up here so that we can put a beating on you. But it didn't come out the way. And then I interviewed the Strake Jesuit coach before the game, a couple weeks before the game. He said, I'm just excited to see the Haka. I can't wait to take my phone out and film the Haka. And I was like, you're going to want to plan for this game. You don't need to be jacking around with your phone over on the other sideline. But they played strong against them. It's got you scratching your head about the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, and all the big names for Trinity had their big stats. Josh Bell didn't have the big 200 yards, but he did have the touchdowns. And they played okay, but then I look at their defense. I thought their defense was what was going to get better this year. They gave up almost 500 yards to Strake Jesuit. It was corrected to me at the dump that they had 2 turnovers in the game, and they were basically meaningless. end of game turnovers that didn't really contribute to the flow of the game at the end of the day. But man, the fact that Houston Strake Jesuit, which was like a 35-point computer underdog, came all this way and put up 500 yards on Euless Trinity. I'm scratching my head at that. Now they got Midland Legacy this week, and they got to go out there. Midland Legacy just got zeroed, goose egged, and coming into Allen. So they're going to try to be figuring something out. So I think we're going to get a little bit of early calibration with that. But man, what is it with Trinity that just makes you want to believe in them, you buy into them, and then give up 500 yards to Houston Strake Jesuit?
That's wild. That's wild. There's two other winning teams that you were scratching your head about too, and Denton Ryan and excuse me, not Alito. You already talked about them. Denton Ryan, Forney. Talk about that. I mean, you talked a little bit about Forney already, but talk about why those guys got you scratching your head through victories.
Denton Ryan, that game was a lot closer. I wanted to see the style points. I didn't get the style points. But then when I was looking in the stat sheet, the quarterback for Denton Ryan was not the quarterback I expected. We got to see another Hennigan in there, which may end up being fine, given how well the last Hennigan did. But I was expecting, I think Braden Mussett was his name.
Yeah, that's his name.
In there. So I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if he left. What's going on over there? But that was a little bit of a head scratcher. I know they're going to be in good hands. If you got a coach's son at quarterback who's got the pedigree, you're going to be okay. But I was expecting a little bit more. And now we've been talking about Denton Ryan having a very physical defense, maybe even a shutdown defense, giving up the points they did to Northwest Eaton, that were a team that were expected to be 7th or 8th. I mean, come on, Denton Ryan. We're talking about Alito and having some head scratchers. Well, you're also looking at Denton Ryan, and there's some head scratchers. And even Richland, to a certain extent, didn't beat Haltom the way I expected.
Right.
So definitely some head scratchers there. Forney should have lost to Lake Highlands. They got dominated by Lake Highlands. So Forney, I got to see a little bit from you. You got A&M Consolidated and then Waxahachie, a team that's looking to prove something, because Waxahachie's next 4 games, Coppell, Forney, Duncanville, DeSoto. So they're probably looking at that Forney game like, that's all in right there. We got to get our win right here. So scratching my heads about that. Arlington Bowie, why don't you take your bow here? It's your Flower Mound Jaguars.
We always get a big.
You cannot overlook those Jaguars.
No, you cannot. Especially if you're going into extra. You give us extra time. Oh, don't give us extra time. We'll get you in that second overtime for sure.
And then Jesuit, head scratcher there for me, and then
Midlothian Heritage. That was just I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, to me it was 50-50 game, but not 50 point for one team. I meant 50-50 in the outcome. I didn't think they were going to get stomped out like that.
Yeah, that game was never close. I mean, you can look at it and go 3 scores, but I mean, Hebron got up on them early, and it was pretty much garbage time after that. And then Midlothian Heritage, a team that I thought could really compete in Region 2, maybe be up there with South Oak Cliff, losing to Stephenville, 4A Stephenville, 38-3.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like reverse style points right there. To me, that's like the worst loss of all of the losses, because that's a 4A team that you've lost
It
to.
is.
You talk about Waxahachie and Ennis. And okay, well, Waxahachie beat Ennis. That's at least a 6A Division I school beating you like that. This is a 4A Division I school, which is a good school, state ranked, probably may win a state championship. But Midlothian Heritage has got to be competitive in that game at the very least.
It's to hear a score like 38-3, they got to tweak the offense and the defense. That's just a all points bulletin. Everything that'll make you overreact. I have a feeling coaches worked all day Sunday on that one. Well, if you have flowers, you got to have shovel. Got your shovel out there to start digging dirt and putting it on top of teams. After 1 week, some people may call this an overreaction, but Diggs, give me some teams that you're about ready to throw some dirt on.
I got 2 teams. I'm saying you're not making the playoffs. You're done until you change my mind, and then we'll have an Undertaker graphic, and we'll come out. We'll sit up. But Denton Braswell and more. It's like a 2-part thing with Denton Braswell. I remember we were talking off air in our production meeting. I like saying that we were in a production meeting, Ward, and you're like, "How can you give a shovel to a team that won a football game?" Or Diggsy, what are you seeing here? Well, I mean, we talked about Boswell significantly in the campfires and in our preseason shows that this was a team that lost like half of their team to Eagle Mountain. And then for 45 minutes of that 48 minutes of that game, they were just dominating Denton Braswell to the last quarter when Denton Braswell made a furious comeback and won the game. So they get some points for absolutely winning that game. But given the fact that every Louisville ISD school beat a ranked team last week, now Denton Braswell, should have gotten their style points against Boswell. They got the win. Now I got them at 7th in this district. I can't see them beating any of the Louisville schools. Then you got to get Coppell and Geyer in there. You got the shovel, Denton Braswell. I needed the style points. You didn't give them to me. You got the win, but you're done. And Mesquite Horn's getting my shovel. We've been talking about that. I gave it a chance. I heard there was going to be some young talent that they're going to be able to step up and beat Mansfield. They didn't beat Mansfield. They were competitive for a half, but they ended up getting blown out by Mansfield. You can't beat Mansfield. You're not competing in the District of Doom. You get the shovel.
You get the shovel, and there's a couple other ones that you have the shovel looming over it. You have the dirt on it. You haven't thrown it yet. That will put them on shovel watch. Who do you got on the shovel watch who needs to show you something in week 2 to get off of that?
Shovel watch, you got Mansfield Summit, losing the way they did and them being in the District of Depth as well. I mean, I pulled them out of the playoffs, but I could still see them getting back into it. Brewer losing to Saginaw. We're expecting big things out of Brewer this year, maybe getting that 4th spot, but losing to Saginaw, come on. I mean, I know Saginaw's better, and Saginaw has that offseason where they're looking at that district, and all of a sudden confidence is there. Brewer should have been having that confidence. So Brewer, you're on my shovel watch. North Mesquite not being competitive in that game. I know the district they're in. It's going to take a little bit to get the shovel out to give it to them, but I'm watching you, North Mesquite. And Tyler High had one of the worst, kind of a Midlothian heritage performance, losing by 4 scores to Marshall. That's not going to work in that district. So I got them 5th right now after having them 3rd, and I'm about to go ahead and bury it pretty soon. So Tyler High is going to have to show me something real quick. So all 4 of those teams are on shovel watch.
Yeah, and to think that the over/under was like 2 games for me to get out to in the Carrollton Mesquite district, and that it may have just dropped to 1 because of North Mesquite was one of the teams we were thinking might finish 3rd, maybe 2nd. But if that's a 3rd place team, they got a lot of work to do, get that thing turned to go in the right direction. Let's start talking about some games this week. You ready? Let's talk about a game that you're going to be at.
Can you believe it? And it's the last non-district game for like 80% of our coverage area. These right. 19 districts are crazy. Next week, we are going to be talking about games that matter predominantly in most of the, a good chunk of the districts, especially in the 5As. 6A, it's, about 30%. But when you get down to 5A, it is starting. And especially in all the good districts, a lot of 9-team districts in 5A Division I. So, man, it's right around the corner. And Byron Nelson is one of those teams in the 9-team district. And that's where we're going to start.
And they're taking Louisville this week. Next week, they start district play with South Lake Carroll. And they didn't play all that well against Friendship. They got the win because their offense played tremendous with 48 points. But now they're playing a Louisville team that, we've tucked that shovel away a little bit. They're now basking in flowers. Talk about what you think you'll see how that's that Thursday night.
And they put up 51. So now Byron, it's like we're going year to year with Byron Nelson. Good offense, good defense. Now we're back to good offense. But that defense and Friendship is a good team. I'm not throwing dirt on Friendship. Friendship is a good team, but this is a team that Byron Nelson should be handling by 2 or 3 scores if they are an elite team. If South Lake Carroll was playing them, it would probably be like a 48-28 kind of game, kind of like with Midland, like they played with Midland. So Byron Nelson is a team now that I've got some offensive questions on. Louisville beat a 5A Division II school. That's the problem with that. They beat a 5A Division II school. So now we're going to step up in the competition. So this is a fascinating game. I think Byron Nelson is going to eke out another win, kind of a game where we're going to see Louisville kind of maybe showing us they've got something and they can be competitive in that middle tier of top tier teams. Too many tiers here. Middle tier of top tier. But Byron Nelson, I think, is going to hang on for one more week because, like you said, their offense did step up, and I think that Louisville is going to have some deficiencies in the defense that's going to be exposed by Byron Nelson having too many playmakers on the outside. I like Byron Nelson, but man, this could be one of those games where Byron Nelson can't win this game. I'm not saying a shovel, but it's definitely going to be a rankings drop and a half if they can't pull
If
out.
they can't pull it off, and then if they struggle against Southlake, they got to play them on the road. I don't know what's going to happen. You may drop them out of the top 20. I doubt you will, but you might. Here's a game that you added late. Capel going against Waxahachie. Wade Lemons had a heck of a game, but they're playing an Ennis team, and heck, it's been like 3 years now. You've been trying to squash that rivalry. That's no good for you, Waxahachie. Don't play it. Forget about the fact the whole community's out. Don't play the game anymore. Well, now Capel's going down there. They get to have that nice spread that they have there for the media, if they have any media traveling with them. And they're taking on this team. And Capel, they struggled a little bit at the beginning, but boy, they took over things in the second half with the Baylor-bound Eddie Griffin.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Saxe was a team that's kind of, like I talked about, their defensive line being the kind of the strength of their team. In the first half, as you kind of saw, he didn't get open. He didn't get to see the receivers down the field. There was a lot of slugfests in the running game, didn't quite open up. But Capel's defense was up to the task in the second half. They kind of figured things out. Well, Waxahachie is expected to be that kind of a style of a team where they've got a couple of really good receivers on the outside, a good running game, a good offensive line, but there's still questions on do they have the explosiveness? And they did have some explosiveness against Ennis, but that's Ennis. That's 5A Division II. Capel is going to be a different animal. I think Capel is going to be the favorite in this game. I think it's going to look very similar to the way the Saxe game looked. I don't think Waxahachie will lose as much as Saxe did. I think Waxahachie will probably be a 2-touchdown underdog, but it'll probably be 3 to 7 points at halftime, back and forth in the second half, and then Capel will pull away in the fourth quarter for like maybe a 35-21 kind of a game. I'll even lower, maybe a 28-14 kind of game. I don't know if Waxahachie's got the offense to get 20 points on Capel, but I think Capel is still a 2-score favorite in this game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's week 2, and it's opening night for Duncanville. They're taking on South Oak Cliff. South Oak Cliff, they wanted to play tough competition. They are. They're getting slapped around a little bit down in Houston. I'm assuming a lot of the same up here at Duncanville, although we did get a really nasty sack by Kamorian Morgan. Blindside. It's one of those crunching sacks that you love to see, but it obviously didn't help the offense score any points. Will they score against Duncanville?
Maybe late, maybe fourth quarter. I feel for South Oak Cliff because I know there's a little bit of an internal competition with Duncanville and DeSoto and North Shore and South Oak Cliff. It's like whatever you can do, we can do better. So that Duncanville watched that South Oak Cliff and North Shore game and saw that North Shore beat them by 38. So what do you think Duncanville's thinking? We got to beat that.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to let them know who we are, and I think they will. So I think I think Duncanville will win this game by at least 39, and I think they'll play into the fourth quarter until they get to that point. Now, if there's a garbage time touchdown, I think they'll be okay with it, but I think they want to hang their hats on the fact that we beat South Oak Cliff more than North Shore did. Now, one thing that is a little bit of an intangible that South Oak Cliff won't be traveling as much for this game. Going to Houston's a little bit different than going up the road, but I think Duncanville will win this game handily. But again, it's not going to do anything, for my opinion, on South Oak Cliff. This is just what Coach Todd is doing to get his team ready for the grind in the playoffs.
Exactly. And another difference is their coaches are really tight friends as well. I'm sure Todd's not as close with Willie Gaston down there at North Shore, and Willie Gaston wasn't even on the sidelines for the first 2 games. He's got to serve that suspension first. But maybe there's something there where Samples doesn't want to run it up on his boy. Who knows? Although he didn't have a problem with it last year. We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to Lancaster and Lido. One team got flowers. The other team got hit over the head with a shovel. But I'm assuming you're probably going to pick a Lido because they're playing at the Bearcat Stadium. But this could be an interesting style point type game too. Can they do more with Lancaster than North Crowley did, or they just got to do all they can just to get the win here?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do all they can just to get the win here. For me, if you look at that Lancaster game, other than that pick six, that should have been a pick six, there were a couple of really big errors in that game. There was that play where they went to the Wildcat and Isaiah Lee fumbled it at the 2-yard line. They had another fumble in their red zone. So Lancaster, if you look back to last year, kind of made these mistakes last year at times as well. in bigger arrays than others. And I've been talking about Alito's mistakes repeatedly over the last 9 games that they've played. I think Alito being at home is a little bit of a buffer zone for them. They seem to play well, maybe focus a little bit more at home than they do on the road or in these playoff venues. So I think that's the hard thing for me to get past. I know I hate giving you generic talk, Ward, because I don't like when other people give me generic talk. I give you all the coaching. We got to take one play at a time, Ward. We got to do this and that. But for me, this is all about the mistakes. These are 2 mistake-ridden teams. Who's not going to make the mistakes? And that's going to be your winner of the game. I think as much mistakes as Alito has made, Lancaster has matched them 1 for 1. So I feel like at home, I got to trust Alito just a little bit more than Lancaster. But I think if Alito does their traditional over their last 9 games, they have an average of 3 game-changing plays against them. If they give Lancaster those 3 game-changing plays, Lancaster's winning the game.
Boy,
but I believe in them. I think this time they won't do it. Maybe they'll do 2. As long as they can avoid 3, I think they win.
I'm not sure you're ever going to be able to step foot in Alito, just the way you talk about them. I don't know if they're going to give you a meal. They probably will.
I'm right, though, Ward. I'm right. They know it.
You are right, but still, they're going to up the gas on you by $1 a gallon. They're going to do everything to you to keep you out of there. Anyway, let's move on to Trinity and Midland Legacy, which is a game we saw last year in the playoffs. It was a shootout. They actually talked to each other after the game was over about scheduling this game for next year, and Trinity heading up that way. We're probably going to expect another shootout, but especially the way Trinity's defense is playing. But who do you think comes out on top? Is it another Legacy win?
This is a calibration game for me. I cannot pick a team that lost 61-0 against Allen. I just can't see them getting that much better. I don't think Allen would beat Trinity 61-0. Maybe they would. Maybe we're going to find out, in calibration that they would have done that to Trinity as well. I just can't believe that to be true. So I have to believe because we are not. This is not West Texas digging for wisdom or digging for gold or oil or whatever we're digging for out in West Texas. So I just cannot believe that Midland Legacy is going to get that much better in 1 week. So I think Trinity's going to be the favorite, but if they're not, that's when we're getting the shovel out for Trinity. Because if Trinity loses to a Legacy team that lost to Allen by 61, what does that say in that district? Because that's a really good district with teams right in the middle that are tightly compacted that are just waiting to climb up that ladder. LD Bell beat them last year. Keller Timber Creek, Northwest Eaton, Justin Northwest. These are all really good football teams. And if Trinity is not the Trinity that we kind of expect, any of those teams can beat Trinity. So Trinity has got to get their chance to, again, earn their trust back. I got to see some trust, Ward. I'm taking Trinity, but I'm only going to take them by 14. But Trinity definitely has a chance to earn some of that trust back by showing us that maybe Midland Legacy isn't what they thought, and maybe showing us that Trinity that we thought we might see in week 1.
Gotcha. All right, well, our game of the week is North Crowley at DeSoto. It's now become the norm for DeSoto to score 10 touchdowns a game. They push the thing to 70. I hope they don't get up to 100 because I don't know if our graphics can show 3 numbers in that column there. We'll have to test out a couple theorems and see what works there. But DeSoto, another big one against North Crowley. From what I saw against North Crowley, this looks like a DeSoto win going away, but I'd like to see them be competitive in this one.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, we thought North Crowley could be competitive in this game. Now, after what I saw against Lancaster, I got to believe they cannot be competitive in this game because people always talk about week 1. They chalk up North Crowley and Lancaster. All these are week 1 mistakes, week 1 rust, and all of that kind of stuff. DeSoto didn't look very rusty putting up 70 against a top team out of Georgia. We're not talking about a bad team from Georgia. This is a good team from Georgia. Maybe not their best team, but, a solid, like a Byron Nelson kind of a team, who's going to be a couple of rounds of a playoff team. And they just 70-0, just could not do anything. So right now I got DeSoto as at least a 4-touchdown favorite. But can North Crowley shake it off and figure it out? Yeah, but from what I saw, I can't see where they're going to get on the outside edges against DeSoto. And DeSoto, it's like the more you punch DeSoto, the more they're going to fire back. So if North Crowley is able to get 21 or so, we may see 90 because DeSoto's got, going to keep fighting until, okay, we pull the brakes off. We're going to pull up the gas pedal a little bit. I don't see North Crowley being able to push DeSoto. So I think DeSoto is going to win big. I don't think it's going to be a fun game to watch at all. Sorry. Who's our camera guy there?
My man, Jason Bott. He just moved in from California. I got to give him a fun game. he'll have a fun game for seeing highlights, right? You'll see some special long touchdown runs.
Maybe so, but I don't think he's going to have a competitive game. I know you videographers look at things a little bit differently. You want the big plays. You're talking about Khalid Lockett, how you're excited as you got there. You got the one Saxy game. Now you got a big highlight of Lockett. We may get some highlights out of this, but I think they're going to be mostly on the DeSoto side of things.
Gotcha. How about this one, buddy boy? Huh? Flower Mound, home game against Wiley. Flower Mound looking good. 50 burger. 50 burger. Noah Spinks.
If you're smart, Ward, I bet all three of your players should come from Wiley and Flower Mound.
Probably should, right?
Because I think we're going to see some points here. Wiley showed me a lot because they got down 4 scores to Richardson Pierce and battled back and took the lead in the fourth quarter before Richardson Pierce was finally able to put it away. Flower Mound showed an offensive burst against Arlington Bowie. I think this is going to be a very similar high-scoring sort of game, but give me those Flower Mound Jaguars.
Yeah, give them to them.
And,
here we go, buddy boy.
Give me 49-42 again.
That's what I like to hear. That's what, my man, I'm all for it. Hey, another one taking place in Hebron. You got Southlake against Hebron. Tell me what you think about this one, because going into the season before week 1 happened and they dismantled Jesuit, I would think that would be – I was going to go to it anyway because I really want to see this Jake Van Dorsalier tight end, see what kind of blocker he is and all that stuff for the next level. But now I think it might be at least a game for a half, if not more.
Yeah, this game has gone from undesirable to undeniable because of the way Hebron played. Not only did they beat Jesuit, they showed offense, they showed defense, they gave us a well-rounded approach. And there were some questions about Southlake Carroll and Midland. That game was like punch, and then Carroll got 4 quick jabs on him and knocked him out. But it wasn't, this kind of 49-0 or 70-0 like we're talking about with DeSoto domination that I was kind of expecting to see out of a Southlake Carroll. And now you got Hebron, who is on a high. There's no question Southlake Carroll is going to be the favorite. So we're looking at style points in this game. And if you're looking at 5-6A, if Hebron can play competitive with Southlake Carroll, they can be competitive with Coppell, Marcus, Geyer, everybody in this district. So Hebron has a chance to earn some style points. We're going to find out where Hebron sits in the pecking order. I put them in my rankings this week. So we got 2 ranked teams playing each other. And Hebron, that's a hard place to play at. I've seen it firsthand. They got a little bit of home field advantage at the Brian Brazel Stadium. And they'll tap into his spirit a little bit. They'll bring the wood. But I think Southlake Carroll will win this game by only 14. But to me, that's a disappointment right there. The fact that I'm only picking Carroll to beat Hebron by 14 shows that I'm a little bit down on Carroll and I'm a little bit up on Hebron.
Taking behind the woodshed. I love it over there. Parking's a little bit suspect, but I still love going over there. All right, Richardson against Plano. Tell me what you feel about this game, because Richardson was one of our dark horses in 7-6A, and now with the way you're jacking around with that standings there, where do you have Richardson there now as of after week 1, and what do you think about this game against Plano after they finished playing? They went out and played Permian? Who did they play? I forgot.
Yeah, they went out to Permian and lost. Yeah. Like I said on the show last week, Ward, which I was accurate on yet again. There's my cockiness kicking in. That who thought it was a smart idea for Plano to go out 6 hours to lose a game for nostalgia? I just don't get it. You can lose to plenty of teams here if you want to lose to teams. I mean, we got plenty of teams in DFW. You don't got to do it for 1980s nostalgia. I didn't agree with it, but what Plano did show me is under that adversity, they overcame adversity. They didn't win, but they played hard. They were competitive, and that's the same thing with Richardson. They were down 21-3 in that game and came back in the fourth quarter to Lakeview Centennial to win that game late as well. So to me, this is one of those shovel games. We got a shovel watch that the loser of this game, to me, I don't think can make the playoffs. So the winner of this, I think, has a chance because I've got both of these teams 4, 5, 6 spots in their district. Richardson 4-5, Plano 4, 5, 6. So the loser of this game, to me, it's going to be harder to get to that 4th spot. I think Richardson is going to beat Plano. I think Richardson just has too many athletes, but Plano has a big opportunity to show why they can be competitive for the 4th spot in their district in 6-6A. So this is an old school kind of back before Plano East and Plano West. It was Winston Duke in Richardson High School against John Clark in Plano, and this was like the battle in this area. So we're bringing back nostalgia again, but this is the kind of nostalgia that I want to see, but it's also relevant for both of their districts. So one of these teams is going to make a case for potentially making the playoffs, and one of them is going to not. And I think it's going to end up being Plano, but Plano loves to clip these things and prove me wrong. So there's your bulletin board material, gentlemen.
You love throwing dirt on Plano. I wondered why. Anyway, let's move on to Rockwall Heath against Prosper. Prosper's finally getting to play in their home stadium. They have to travel down to Waco. Rockwall Heath got taken out by Highland Park. Man, that one turnover is what killed them, really, and then it went downhill from there. The 99-yard interception return, or however long it was. And Prosper at home, they gave up, or on the road, they gave up 35 points against a good Austin Westlake team. Can they hold this down a little bit more to get that offense brewing, get their quarterback in there, get something started there?
Yeah, Rockwall Heath was one of those teams that in their loss impressed me because I'd heard about these players that were coming up, and we saw a kickoff return, we saw a big run. All of the skill players that were stepping in all had big games against a really good Highland Park defense. You couldn't watch that and go, well, that's just bad Highland Park. Highland Park played really well in that game, and so did Rockwall Heath, and they matched them punch for punch. So now you got a Prosper team who got their licks taken, but we don't have in-area calibration. So I feel like this is one of those games that could go on upset watch. I think Rockwall Heath is absolutely good enough to go up to Prosper, but I think Prosper's offensive line is just going to wear down. When I was watching some of the tape, you had Doug Anderson and LaDarren McLean on the call in this game. I just don't think that Rockwall Heath had that infrastructure to be competitive with Highland Park's offensive line. So I don't think they're going to be competitive with Prosper's offensive line. I'm looking for a 28-21 kind of a game where we kind of look at both teams as coming out a little bit better than we thought after the game.
That'll be nice. That'll be a good. I wasn't expecting 28-21 out of you. I was expecting them a little bit bigger. So that'll be a good one for people to come see. Another good one to see is up at Allen. Allen against Cedar Hill. Seems like that game's always played at Allen. I don't ever remember Allen going down to Cedar Hill, and they don't have very much luck coming up to Allen. So coming off a 61-point game, I know Cedar Hill scored 40, but talk to me about this game. Who you think I guess I should just say, how badly do you think Allen's going to win? Because I think you think they're going to win. I'm putting words in your mouth.
Disrespectful to people in your life, and I think you're going to need to write a handwritten apology about that kind of a thing. Women love handwritten notes, like thank you notes and things like that. So you're going to have to this is a little bit of marital and relationship advice all into one right here. You got to have the handwritten notes to give that little bit of a touch. So when you're writing this apology letter, get the pencil and pen out, or don't just type an email or a text message. I need a pen to paper, because both these teams have a lot of questions. Both of these teams had really good first week experiences, but they played teams where we don't know what that means yet. You had a good game against a traditional powerhouse, but both of those teams may be down. And these are two teams that are looking to get back to their previous glory. I could see Cedar Hill winning this game as much as I could see Allen winning this game, because I don't know about Midlothian yet. We don't know about Midland Legacy. I think it'll all calibrate. I think it'll all make sense afterwards. But we're here. We are paid to be here to talk about before it happens, not after it happens. We can talk about after it happens if Euless Trinity beats Allen or beats Midland Legacy 52-0, and we're like, well, see, there you go. And then if Midlothian comes back this week and beats Ennis like 42-7, well, okay, we can see that in hindsight bias. I think Allen is a favorite in this game, but a much smaller favorite than you apparently. You're like, name your margin, Diggs.
No, I never said name your margin. Didn't say that. Now you're putting words in my mouth.
I think we're back in the 30s in this game. I think we're going to see a 34-28 kind of a win where Allen gets a couple of field goals to get the difference. But go write that note.
Good.
Pause right now and go write your note, Ward. Then you come back and finish this podcast. It's disrespectful.
Finish it. All right. See you in 3 minutes. In the meantime, while I'm gone, you talk about Colleyville Heritage and Richland. Richland took it off their arch rival, their Haltom, their city rival, whatever. They beat them by 20, but it was a little bit of a struggle. And I already told you my thoughts on the Heritage game. I think they both get in line and get more to what they're used to doing in this game. And looks like an old-fashioned shootout to me.
It's funny because I've had two games where my analysis of the box score, which is all I can do in a lot of these games, is different from somebody who actually saw it. And one thing that I like to do I like to go see very specific teams because I like the eyeball test. So on one hand, I like that feedback from people like you and the 4-Star Telegram. Charles Swaggerly told me he didn't think Alito looked as good as I thought Alito looked in watching the box score, and you said you didn't think Colleyville Heritage looked as good as I might have thought from looking at the box score in an old-fashioned slugfest. And Richland didn't look good in the box score either. So to me, I feel like Colleyville Heritage is a little bit of a favorite. This is fascinating for me, though, like as a metric comparison game, because Colleyville Heritage beat Red Oak, who I have as the number 6 team in 5A Division 1 by 3 points, and now they're playing the number 5 team in Division 1. So you would think that if Richland is better than Red Oak, that Richland maybe should win this game. But for some reason, I believe in Colleyville Heritage. I think the mistakes that they made, I think, could be fixed. I think that they just have too much offensive talent. And Richland, what is their weakness, Rich? What is Richland's weakness, Ward?
Defense.
It's defense. I think Colleyville Heritage is going to feast on that. I just think the matchups, to me, speak of a more favorable outcome for Colleyville Heritage. And I like that Red Oak has a little bit of a defensive swagger to them. I think it's going to serve them well in their district, in their playoffs. But I think in this kind of a game, you don't want to get in a shootout with Colleyville Heritage. If you're getting into a shootout, I'm taking Colleyville Heritage.
So you're making me want to switch my wide receiver pick this week because he got 200 yards against Red Oak. Braden Blewett did. But he's fun to watch. I tell you what, I have a feeling I'll be making bobbleheads for him at some point. By the way, a lot of these guys that come in for the bobbleheads literally think I have some sort of woodshed in my garage and I'm making these things myself. Hey, can you make me about 2 or 3 others? I said, well, I can't make you nothing. I might be able to make you a ham sandwich. I can't make you no bobblehead, though. Anyway, let's move on to our next game. This is one I'll be at Thursday. Timberview against Denton Ryan. Tell me what you think about this game. We already I did go through the box score and saw Braden Mussett got 10 touches as a receiver, running back type player. But, yeah, I guess they're just putting Hennigan in as the quarterback here. Quinn, the mighty Quinn.
And like they did that last year, and if you remember, it was when they moved him to quarterback that they actually started to get better. So I head scratcher, Ward. But speaking of quarterbacks, I heard the Timberview quarterback got hurt in that game, and from what I'm hearing from people who are on the ground, it didn't look like he's going to be playing this week. I don't like to speculate on injuries. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's back in there. But it sounded like that against Kimball, that Timberview really dropped off, even against Kimball once they lost their quarterback. Obviously, when you have a week of practice and full reps, you can get back into things. So you got two big questions for me as these quarterbacks, and what's going to happen there. I think Denton Ryan is a pretty good favorite in this game. But again, I got to learn more about both these teams. I got to learn how Timberview is going to work without their quarterback, if that is in fact the case, because that district is so good. We kept talking about it in the campfire. One injury could completely change the way we perceive you in that district with the Colony and so many good teams in that district who are just looking to get into that playoff run. And Denton Ryan, they're not looking impressive yet. I mean, coach's son and all that, I need to see better out of Denton Ryan, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm taking Denton Ryan, but I'm not impressed.
All right. Well, I'm not impressed with the way your voice is going right now. So it's leaving me, man. Take a sip of water.
I'm listening.
Frisco Wakeland against the Colony. The Colony.
Now my voice is back. So.
Carson Cox looked pretty good in their opening game, and then Frisco Wakeland. It's that Wakeland Grapevine game, and we always never know what's going to happen. Well, they got the win in this one. Talk to me about your thoughts on this game at the Colony. By the way, the Colony's got a really nice new basketball gym that they're hosting a national tournament here in November that I'm actually looking forward to seeing. It'll be right in the middle of playoffs, so I won't see much of it, but.
Louisville ISD taking care of it. A lot of
has been going on at the Colony over the last couple of years. Yeah, exactly. Bond was passed. All right, tell me what you think of this football.
Didn't impress me against Grapevine. Neither team really impressed me that much, but the Colony they did impress me against Fossil Ridge. I think this is an opportunity for Wakeland to maybe the Colony's defense isn't probably going to be as good as Grapevine's defense is. So can Frisco Wakeland against a lesser defense maybe get some more offensive cohesion there? Because that was like a bowling shoe ugly kind of just a defensive battle, big play kind of a game. I think the Colony could earn extra style points here, especially with a lot of questions about Timberview and Summit in their district. So I'm going to take the Colony, but I want to see the style points as well.
All right. We talked a little bit about this one earlier because you threw flowers at Reedy, but talk about Reedy and Emerson. Emerson, a team that you have seen before. You saw them on Thursday, and then you got this Reedy team that looks like they're an offensive juggernaut the way they started off the season.
They are. It is a classic offense versus defense. And it's that calibration. I think in 3 weeks I'd have a much better read on this. But we're starting district with Emerson coming up next week, so you get what you get. We got 1 week, and what I saw with Frisco Emerson is their offense is not great, but also McKinney's defense. That's Riley Pettijohn. They got some really good defensive players over there, but I just didn't see that ability to extend the ball, to extend the field and go downfield. It's like they had to start running the option to get out to the edges and to start to find a little bit of offensive rhythm in that game. Whereas Reedy did anything they wanted to against Lake Ridge, and they showed a really good defense. But I don't know if Reedy has those big name defensive players that even McKinney had. I think we're going to have a little bit of a higher scoring game than Emerson and McKinney did, but I'm going to stick with Frisco Emerson in this game, 28-21. But Reedy loves to prove me wrong as much as Emerson loves to prove me right. So you got like trying to put magnets together, Ward. Like I know you like trying to put magnets together when you get bored trying to play your little football games where you're going down the field and flicking things and baseball things and all kinds of fun activities you like to do.
What in the world is this man talking about? Those little games I like to play.
Baseball board games.
Where I'm going down the field and just flicking things. All right. I'm buried in flicks.
You like fold up the little paper.
Paper and kick field goals. All right. Well, I'm about ready to flick something, but I'm not going to do it on air here. Talk to me about. First of all, if Chad Cole wants me to come to this game, which he always does because they win when I'm show up there, he's sadly mistaken. It's Teddy Met ball games can be at that one. I don't know what kind of good luck charm he is. And I want to give a quick shout out to Emerson's that Agape Lawrence on the D line. He's maybe not a supersized guy, but he's just a straight up football player. He's just a player, the kind of guy you want to bust through that line and make those stops. He was nasty in game one, and maybe he'll do the same here against Reedy. I guess you're thinking he will because you got him winning by 3. And the other game, Teddy Ball games, that is Melissa in Frisco. I believe that one's at the Star. So he'll be there to see what you've already seen in Melissa. And where's my man, Jackson Verwick? By the way, I heard he's at University of Texas. He's down at Texas enjoying the Texas Longhorns right now, but he would say Frisco by 90. What do you say in this game?
He would. So we're gonna find out our first insight because they beat Little Elm pretty handily, but it was Little Elm. I think Melissa, the Frisco that I think that Frisco is, I think Melissa's a 3-touchdown favorite. So we're about to find out if Frisco is what Jackson Verwick thinks they are, or if what I think they are. We got a little friendly side bet on that, but I'm taking Melissa by 21.
21. Here's another one. Lovejoy Highland Park. When have they played? I don't know if they have because I certainly. I know Mr.
Todd Dodge versus Randy Allen. I mean, you want to talk about
how many wins are on that one?
Coaches.
Yeah, I was talking to Dalen McCutcheon's dad this weekend, and he was talking about, I'm going to go down to that game. Yeah, I'll probably get there about 6:50. I said, well, if you're going to get there at 6:50, don't plan on getting into the game to the second quarter, man. You're talking about Highland Park. You're not talking about a stadium. You're parking down the neighborhood. So these guys haven't played each other, and they certainly haven't played at Highland Park before. Man, I don't even want to total up how many wins we're going to be on each sideline, but it's got to be well over 400, right? 400, 500, I don't know.
It is coaching royalty. It is football royalty in many ways. Lovejoy is trying to get to that Highland Park level. They're very similar kinds of teams, or very similar kinds of demographics. They're very similar kind of coaching styles and work ethics. So on paper, it looked like a really fun game, but Lovejoy has not really shown what I was hoping to see out of year one in Dodge. They lost to Lubbock Cooper. Yeah, it's a good Lubbock Cooper team. I'm not dismissing that. They did show some offensive firepower, but they didn't show the ability to stop a cold at that point. And I think Highland Park is going to have a better defense than Lubbock Cooper, and I think they're going to have at least as good of an offense. They don't have the playmakers that Lubbock Cooper has. They got a sophomore at quarterback, but I think Highland Park is going to be an efficient game. Going into the season, I was thinking, man, I think I have to take Lovejoy in an upset, but Lovejoy has been under my expectations so far, and Highland Park is overachieved, so I'm going to take Highland Park by 10.
And you have a quarterback named Buck Randall. Man, oh days, you got to run for that. That just sounds like a sweet football name right there. Another game to go at: Arlington Seguin at Red Oak. Red Oak reeling a little bit. Seguin, you toss flowers their way. Talk to me about this game while you have it on the board.
Well, because this is a game that just feels like it's right for an upset. Seguin always loses one in non-district and then wins one. They only got two this year, so to me, it's like a potential upset pick. I think I'm going to take Red Oak for all the reasons you talked about. I think their quarterback situation will get a little bit better. But, man, this is a really good opportunity for Arlington Seguin to step up and show us why they should make the playoffs. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. I'm going to take Red Oak by 7. I got it on upset watch, and I'm nervous about this one, Ward. This is just that kind of game that Arlington Seguin finds a way to win, even though they have no business winning this game. It's the kind of game they find a way to win.
Especially on the road, right? And by the way, those two quarterbacks they kind of feel like relief pitchers because one of them's righty, one of them's lefty. You bring them in situations, I guess. Situational quarterbacks. All right, let's move on to Midlothian. Midlothian at Ennis. If this was like 2-3 years ago, this would be a monster matchup. But now they're teams that are both possible playoff teams, but they really got to get their set. They got to shake off last week and get busy this week.
It's the other battle of 287. Why can't we get, we're talking about all the 287 battles. We got Corsicana and all there, and now we got Midlothian and Ennis, and you just got to find out who the 287 teams are and what is the best. But more interesting for me than this matchup is I love calibration, Ward. Not everybody believes in theories of calibration, but you look at who these two teams played last week, Cedar Hill and Waxahachie. This is an insight into 11-6A in the middle in the District of Doom. I think the winner of this game might kind of give us a little bit of insight into 11-6A as well. This one is tough because Ennis did not look good against Waxahachie. Midlothian did not look good against Cedar Hill. Which of those teams are better? It's hard to find out. It's like I got to trust Midlothian. But if Midlothian can't win this game, they may get the shovel. We may just say Midlothian didn't have the talent this year. I've already dropped Tyler High out. We may drop Midlothian out next. I may get Joshua, who actually did have a quality win last week over Springtown. Maybe it's the rise of the Joshua Owls, Ward.
Maybe they get a flower or 2 or 3,
Maybe
or at least a daisy. Well, that does it for 6A and 5A. Let's move on down to the small school corner where we talk about a couple, 2-3 games.
Ward, so I'm going to sing. Small school corner.
All right, well, I'm glad this song only had one verse. Let's begin with Gunter against Anna, which is one that we're probably going to get as well. Those are high-powered teams. Those are 15, 16-game teams there. Talk to me about what you think in this joint.
I don't think one of those teams is a 15-game team this year, Ward. I think Anna's going to be one and done.
Alonzo, he said it. Alonzo.
I did say it. I stand by it. But I'm going to give you a little bit of calibration, and I'm going to kind of get into this because Gunter played Houston Kincaid last week. They beat them. That's a solid Houston area private school. I know you can't keep up with the private schools more. How would you say Kincaid, if you could give a comparison to a Dallas area private school? We're talking Prestonwood.
They're more of an ESD type. I mean, they're in the same district as Episcopal School of Dallas, but they're a little bit better. They actually had a guy that I was watching in the Georgia Clemson game. Dylan Bell, their running back, went to Kincaid. Pretty good guy, but anyway, go ahead. That's the calibration.
But they didn't dominate them. I mean, so you have that. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of small school wisdom at you, Ward. Last week, one of the games I was looking at that I was fascinated on was Whitney versus Mart. Mart is a team that you see it you see at AT&T making it to 2A Division II against kind of a mediocre 3A Division I school. And you're like, what would happen if you played three classes up? You have an elite 2A Division II team and a 3A Division I team that's kind of a middle of the road team. Well, Whitney ended up beating Mart like 40-8. I mean, this absolutely destroyed the smaller schools. And now Mart might be like, well, maybe this is why we don't play big schools. I feel like this is trending to that kind of level. I think Gunter's going to find out why they haven't been. We always wondered the what ifs. What if Gunter ever played one of these 5A schools? They are going up 4 classifications from 3A Division II to 5A Division II in this game. I think Anna's going to win this game by 3 scores.
3 scores. Wow, it's hard for me to agree with that.
That about a team that's probably going to make it to the state championship again. But yeah, Gunter seems a little bit down, and now Anna seems a little bit up. So I think Anna is a 3-score favorite.
There's no Walker Overman to bail them out if they get into trouble. All right, what about Whitesboro and Bells?
Love this game. These two teams have played each other for the last couple of years. Bell is your old school kind of a running team. Whitesboro, they got Colt Fagan, the son of quarterback of Cody Fagan, the head coach at Whitesboro. But man, Whitesboro had a very impressive win. Bells had a tough luck loss last week. I think Bells is going to bounce back in this game by 7. I think Bells just has Whitesboro's number, Ward. I hate that. We're getting it back into the old District 4 3A report. When I was starting to get feeling good about Whitesboro, Bells would come along and knock Whitesboro just a peg down. Think they're going to do it again, Ward. Think they're going to do it again.
Interesting.
You want to talk about Van Alstyne and Alvarado? I know you wanted to do that.
I'm interested because you had sent out a tweet about Van Alstyne. They scored like 70 last week, right?
72.
And Alvarado's got the quarterback that just was nasty with the 4 touchdowns. I just thought that game might be interesting, something on your small school little radar, but apparently it's not on the radar.
I know nothing about them, so I don't like to talk about things I don't know anything about. So why don't you flash up a graphic of something else I know nothing about?
Okay. Argyle Liberty Christian. I'm sure you know a lot about them since you love the church ball, taking on Texas High. Tell me what you think about this one.
I know nothing about this game, but isn't this game just fascinating? You've got one of the best. You got Jason Witten. You got all his kids playing. You got Liberty Christian, which is expected to be one of the top teams. I think they're up with Parrish now. Maybe people think that they can beat Parrish and their SPC. I don't even know about it, so it's hard to talk about it. But I do know that Texas High is really good in 5A Division II. They just beat Tyler Legacy like a drum last week. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen in this war game. I'm a fan of this game. I just want to watch it because we got a good East Texas 5A Division school against a big private school. It's going to tell us nothing, but I'm fascinated.
And a super intense coach in Jason Witten. That's what you ever meet him on the outside, he's about the nicest guy you ever want to meet. But I've never seen anybody.
I'll take Texas High, by the way, by 7, but
by 7?
I could be wrong.
By 7 points.
I got to take it, but I don't know anything about it. I'm just being real with you, Ward. I know nothing about it.
Well, you are being honest.
East Texas against church ball. There's
something you do know about, which I've learned the hard way. So you know how to pick fantasy players in our first week of fantasy weekly picking, where we pick a quarterback, running back, and receiver. Oh, it was not you threw me my flowers. I got to throw you your flowers. The points, I wasn't even within 100 of you. You got a lot of receiving points for your running back, Casa Grande. He put you over the top, and the fact that Charlie Peters couldn't really do much at the quarterback position put me. I got to give Charlie the shovel. Sorry, Charlie, you get the shovel. Sorry, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie, but we got to pick this week.
Commercial.
Well, actually, are you going to gloat some? Or you want to go ahead and gloat?
I mean, the fact there are players that got more than 439. There are some quarterbacks that got us. Beat both of us. So we got to do better, Ward. Like both of us. We didn't do very well. I beat you, but we didn't do. I was thinking we get 600-700 points.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're in the 400s. It's not good, Ward.
It's a difficult. It's a difficult strategy because in the pros they just keep them out there forever. It's a balance that you got to figure out. You want the big points, but if you're playing a terrible team, then that guy sits for the second half. So let's go through this week's picks. Start with you at quarterback.
Presley Harper from Richardson Pierce. I stuck with Andrew Casagrande, and you know who was throwing him all those passes? It was this guy. He had over 400 yards this week. If we would have picked him up last week, we would have all won with that. And this week they have a very favorable matchup against Plano West. I think they're going to put up a lot of points on Plano West. So I think we're going to have I don't know. My bad side is they probably won't be playing in the second half much. Arlington Lamar had a pretty good week, but I think he'll get enough in the first half to make him a worthwhile pick. So I'm taking him for my quarterback this week.
All right. I'm kind of hoping they go to the run game next week, but we'll see. I'm going with only because I saw this game last year and he did so well. Braxton Van Cleve from Mansfield. They're taking on a Summit team. Just gave up 51. This hard-throwing baseball player put up a lot of points last year for him, a lot of yardage, and he stays in. He'll stay in for the whole game. I'm hoping he can at least keep me within 20 if you're picking Presley Harper, or 30 or 40, and maybe my running backs can step up. But you already told me that there's going to be lots of points in this next game, and that's who you got as your running back, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see 80, 90 points. This is a sophomore, Dalen Gordon. He had over 200 yards rushing this last week. He was not on my radar. He's on my radar now. I think they're going to need him to compete with Flower Mound because Flower Mound doesn't have a great run defense, but I think they're going to be able to go score for score. So this is the player that's going to help me get those scores. So sorry, Wizzy. I'm taking Flower Mound to win, but I'm taking Dalen Gordon to put up some big numbers for me. We're gonna win the other game.
Well, all right. Well, W.T. White's taking on Seagoville. I got Benebeke. I'm hoping he sticks in, and they just stick it to the ground the whole time. Just let him run loose. He ran loose last week. Let him run loose again against Seagoville. Get me some yardage. We keep talking about points, but since you set the rules, it doesn't matter about points. We're only talking about yardage. So hopefully in the run game, he can pick me up 150, 200 before they bench him and let him rest up. And then finally, receiver-wise, you're going with Jeremiah Douglas.
Jeremiah Douglas. Jeremiah was a bullfrog, Wizzy. He's a good friend of mine, and I think he put up big numbers last week. And I think that Crandall is playing a team that they're going to be able to play 48 minutes with, and they're going to need him to have a big game. I could see him getting 200 yards again.
200 again. Well, going by what you didn't think I was going to stay away from this game, did you? Oh, yeah. My guy, Carter Massey. It's time for 250 out of him. I'm going to tell my boys to go in there and talk to him tomorrow at school, or Tuesday, whatever, Wednesday. Get him the ball. He got 11 catches last time. He's going to get a ton this time. Let's go. Let's put up the points, and let's beat Diggsy. We've got to beat Diggsy.
You got to have your guys in there. Although the Plano East running back, Travis Agee, showed me that he could be a player that I could pick at some point. By the way, Crandall's playing Hallsville. I know he was playing some East Texas team, so you gave me enough of a buffer to go Google that. Hallsville is not as good as who they play, Mount Pleasant. So I think they're going to go big this week. Kaufman County's own. We're taking it.
Big this weekend. You know, I talked a lot about Khalid Lockett on the show. Well, probably because I'm working on a story with him for this upcoming week's show. We're going to do something on Khalid. And one of my favorite quotes from him is when I was talking to him, I said, how do you always get all those 50-50 balls? And he said, 50-50? Man, that's 100-0 my way. What are you talking about 50-50? He's like, there's no such thing as a 50-50 ball when I'm on the field. And that's the kind of Dixie confidence I like to hear out of the players. And it's going to be an interesting story. He's going to talk a little bit about the college he chose and how he can make things happen over there at Saxe. Country Roads is heading out to Athens, believe it or not. Who's playing Athens this week? I forget already. It's Kaufman against Athens. So we're going to head out to one of our dealers out there and see what that stadium's like, a team that we don't normally have on there. But Kaufman against Athens will be interesting Country Roads game.
Now Ward, I hate to interrupt you, but I like to get a little geography. Do you know that Athens is east of Malakoff?
I had a feeling you were going to say that. I was
feeling. Own, buddy.
We'll discuss this a little later. We'll discuss this a little later. But Zach Harrell's squad's taking on Kaufman. That'll be a heck of a drive. Whoever I have shooting that game. Kenny Matthews.
You don't be retweeting all that stuff because all the East Texas people hate when I'm retweeting that stuff. And you got Sulphur Springs and those fringe teams out there, and we got well-produced packages on those teams. I'm like, Sorry.
Tell you what, wait till you see the Neil Beasley piece on Monday or Tuesday of this past Godly Alvarado. We had Jerome out there shooting. He threw the drone up to see that stadium. Just a lot of good stuff going on in that one. It's another one. It gets you excited for football when you hear Beasley out there talking like he talks on those things. That voice just puts you into him, and Craig Way really gets you excited for the football season. And then Kenny Matthews.
Like a steak finger basket?
Yeah, exactly. They want you to go to a small school and get yourself something sweet on the road at the old DQ. Kenny's going to talk about DeAndre Williams. We're going to have who we having in for the bobblehead. Oh, you're going to see him live on Thursday. You're going to see Michael Fasusi blocking for Louisville. He'll be on to get his bobblehead. So it'll be another big show with good highlights. I think we're going to have 12 games on there. It's going to be sweet like
Is that a bigger
meat.
bobblehead? Is it like life size?
It should. You know, when we made one for Greg Little for Allen when he played on the line, we had one made with stacked pancakes up this tall, right up to his chest, because he's getting all those pancake blocks. But we kind of tailed it back a little bit. But it does look good. It looks like a good one for you. I'll be at, Timberview and Denton Ryan, and I haven't even picked my Friday game yet, but I will soon. And I'll let everybody know, because I'm sure you want to see me.
You won't let everybody know on Twitter because you hate Twitter.
Yeah, I'm probably done. But we're on DFW Inside High School Sports. Twitter's up and going, man. It's a wonderful place.
It is. That's
all right, Dixie.
DFW or IHSS _DFW.
There it is, _. That's a wrap.
On all of the social medias, including TikTok, which I don't do TikTok. But yeah, it's.
Before we go, who's going to be the biggest movement, either up or down, in your 6A rankings? Who has the biggest movement?
We dropped some teams out. There's a lot of downward. There wasn't really any major, like they were dropped 10 spots. Everybody kind of did what I expected. You had a couple teams drop 3 or 4. You had a couple of teams raise 3 or 4. Kind of the same thing. Midlothian Heritage is probably my biggest faller in 5A Division 2. I think I'd had them 7, and now they're like 12. So there wasn't a ton of movement in the rankings this week. You know what that means, Wizzy? I got it right the first time. Don't need to do much change.
Exactly.
Tweaks.
I got you. All right, Diggsy, we'll talk to you next week, man. We'll be digging for wisdom for week 3.
See you down the country road.